being aware and being flexible. And as a leader, you have to roll with that rather than complain, rather getting stuck in that energy. You have to pivot and move.
It's one thing to be aware. It's another thing to be able to respond to that awareness by being flexible. And for you, when you think about as a business owner, as a leader, how do you practice awareness? Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to GrowthReady, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high-performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. On this episode, CEO of AdNet, Betsy Cerulo, joins us to get to the heart of the ever-changing world of growth.
Heart-centered does not mean standing around holding hands and singing Kumbaya. That's not what it is.
As we are about to learn, Betsy prides herself on an honest yet compassionate approach to those she leads, which happens to be the same approach she's taken to ready herself for the responsibility that she takes for her own growth journey. Hey guys, as we get started here with the episode, I want to just take 1 minute of your time to make a request for you to subscribe and rate the show. For our show to be easily discovered by other potential listeners, we need our current listeners, that's you, to take the time to not only subscribe, but to also rate the show. Whether you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, whatever platform of choice, there are typically ways to be rating the show. So go ahead and click something like that 5th star and be sure to take that additional time to leave a comment or two about why it is you enjoyed listening to the GrowthReady podcast. Your efforts on this will allow our show to be more discoverable, which means we're going to find more listeners and continue to have that significant impact on the community of human performance and personal development that I know you are all benefiting from by being listeners to this show. Please go ahead, take the time, subscribe, rate the show today. Hey, and while you're at it, why don't you share it with a few people as well? I appreciate you guys. Let's get to the interview. Hello there, and welcome back into the most recent installment of GrowthReady. I am very excited to be welcoming someone back onto the podcast. When she originally joined us, when we were once known as Career Competitor, she comes now back in our new form of GrowthReady. It's that of Betsy Cerulo. I'm so excited, Betsy, to have you back with us. But the beauty of having you back now from when the Career Competitor podcast was to what we are now is I get to ask you a question at the beginning that I did not get to ask you the first time. And so to open us up, Betsy, what does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Well, Steve, especially in today's times, being growth ready means being aware and being flexible, because it seems things are changing on a weekly basis. And as a leader, you have to roll with that rather than complain. Well, you can complain, but rather getting stuck in that energy, you have to pivot and move.
I love how you immediately caught yourself there. And it's like, we can complain. It's okay. It's okay to complain, but let's not get stuck in that. Let's understand that there's a need to adapt. And I'm hearing that in your initial response.
Yeah, absolutely. I get, when I come out of my office, my wife says, you have 5 minutes to complain. Okay. And then she goes, then I don't want to hear it. Okay.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. That's healthy, but I think where I'm most excited to go with that initial response, it's one thing to be aware. It's another thing to be able to respond to that awareness by being flexible. You know? And so I think there's those two things immediately that I want to go to. And for you, when you think about your own journey, let's say as a business owner, as a leader, as a spouse, however, there's so many different ways in which we show up daily. How have you become more aware? How do you practice awareness when you think about the course of your life in business and on your own growth journey? How have you learned to just simply be and practice awareness?
It's really telling the truth and facing the truth. And having a business is going to be 36 years old in a couple of weeks. And it hasn't been perfect over that time. It's certainly been wonderful over the past 10 years. And there have certainly been times, which I think comes with my own maturation as a person and also as a leader. You can see it's so easy for people to avoid what's real. We certainly see it in the leadership climate out here across the world, is when it's easier sometimes to ignore what the truth is. So we as leaders really need to pay attention, to trust our intuition. And sometimes telling the truth can be really hard. And facing it, but it's how you approach it that makes all the difference in, I guess, bringing it to full circle to come to a solution.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Truth is fascinating for me, because I ask this question often in some workshops that I do. Hey, listen, if we had a door here and it said only truth only allowed, who here is ready to go in this door? As you can imagine, not too many hands go up. And the one thing I then lean into is this curiosity. Like, why is that? Why are we so afraid of the truth? So how have you come to befriend? How have you found comfort in simply, firstly, identifying and then obviously owning and embracing the truth?
I do my own inner work, and I recommend that to every person, is, working with a therapist. Not, I have a therapist, and I have an executive coach and a strategist. And, sometimes we have to really dig deep and unpack things that maybe have occurred over the course of our life that impact who we are as leaders. And when you can, because there is nobody that has a perfect life. We all have stories from growing up. And I think when you're able to name it, I can now see certain things in myself that will come up. I'll say, oops, sounds like my mother creeped in here. Do you know what I mean? Like some of the behaviors, oh, I remember that. And I then can go in another direction that doesn't repeat that. And, just like with an athlete, I've been an athlete over the course of my life. And if you want to get good at something, you have to practice. It doesn't, all the greats out there, or I'll say the goats, they didn't get there by doing nothing. They had to practice. They felt pain. They cried. They had joy. It's the same thing with leadership. You have to practice, and every day there's no way that a leader can keep doing the same thing every day if they want a different result. You have to modify with whatever you see in front of you.
Yeah, I've always been completely drawn to the idea of embracing practice day in, day out. And I get to relate to my own background in sport. And athletes learn really quickly, if you want to be good, you better get on board with the truth. Like there's only one way of getting better in the world of sport, and it's by embracing the truth above everything else. Because really what you're handed daily is feedback of what is true and what is not. And sometimes that truth is, it's simple stuff, it's small stuff, but then other days it's something that truly grounds you and makes you feel convicted. Like, oh wow, I've got to make some serious changes here. But there's a daily familiarity, a daily practicing of it. I love how you're encouraging us just to lean into, don't wait for the truth to show seasonally or annually, but how do you make it part of every day, right?
Yeah. And if you think about one's life, we've really been conditioned since childhood to believe lies. Everyone has them in their family, whatever it could be. And it could be really small scale. It could be big scale. So when you see behaviors out there in the world now where you see X quite clearly on the screen, but then somebody's telling, well, that's not what happened. It's really a systemic thing that happens over the course of people's lives. And when you interrupt the lies, that means as an individual, business, whatever, then you can really see change happen. Sticking one's head in the sand may seem like easy, but it gets worse if you don't handle it. And there just seems to be layer upon layer upon layer. But if you really want your organizations to be growth ready and to thrive, you have to face what the truth is and then make changes. So if anyone reads about my organization, we're very heart-centered. Heart-centered does not mean standing around holding hands and singing Kumbaya. That's not what it is. So I've certainly had, we have a lot of contract employees that work across multiple contracts across the country. When there's a behavior that's not working or someone is going against what the expectations are, whatever those are, and we call it out, once in a while, a person will come back and say, well, that's not heart-centered. Yeah, it is. We've told you the truth and we've delivered it compassionately. Heart-centered does not mean that it's not heart-centered because you don't like what you hear. So I've just held a mirror for you to look at your truth. And if you can't handle that, that doesn't mean that I'm heart-centered. Now, if I delivered it in a really bad way, that's not heart-centered. But if you deliver the facts, keep the bias out of it, that's heart-centered. It's what we all want. Just tell me the truth. Even if I don't like it, just tell me the truth.
Yeah, and as the leader in that situation you're describing, then it's on us as a leader then to detect how that information is received and then help with the other part of how you answer Growth Ready, which is the flexibility. Like you're looking for the execution now. It's not enough just to make someone aware of a truth and then say, now go figure it out. It's like, okay, there's an extra step here. Like if we always abandon people after we provide truth, are we doing them are we actually serving them at that point, or are we simply if anything, we're burdening them, that we're leaving them with something that they don't know how to handle? Because if they did, they would have obviously already resolved it. It would no longer be this truth that is hard for them to hear. So I'm curious now on the next part, when you think about, and I love the example, the heart-centered culture, but then also to understand that heart-centered doesn't mean kumbaya. It means like having one's best interest, even when they need to hear something as hard as it is for them to hear. Now let's move to the flexibility piece. How are you as a leader, and how have you as a leader simply navigated the follow-on from when you've hit someone maybe with this, tough truth to hear?
More often than not, people will come back to defend it, to defend what they did, or they'll take cheap shots. You can't react to it as a leader. You have to provide fact. And fact isn't always, here's the facts, man, and there's no intention around it. But there are times that we'll have someone that will come back and be really righteous and dig their heels in about X. But okay, so hear you. And I had a recent situation with a candidate that just didn't follow the procedures. And I see what you cited because they made a complaint. But here's what was asked. Here's the email that was sent to you. It was provided. So if people are willing to hear that, then they'll understand. But every so often you have someone that no matter what information you give them that was sent to them, they don't want to be accountable. And that's when you have to stop and say, you know what, this has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with that person. And you have to close the loop and move forward. And there have been times that we have told someone, here's what the expectation is. It's here in writing. Here's the conversations that we're having. Here's the dates. Here's the times. If you've now changed your willingness to accept what the requirements are, then we can transition you off the contract. Then all of a sudden you get, well, no, that's not what I said. And we're not saying we're going to fire you. But if this doesn't work for you this way now, then we'll transition you. And then it's really basically saying you don't get to behave that way. You don't get to change the rules when the rules haven't changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much about this entire example allows us to really envision the average and typical growth journey in such a variety. Like, first, like, something that I'm hearing there in that response is the importance of knowing what good looks like, establishing that agreement on the front end, because I have so many accounts of that when I look back to my time in sport and now in my time within corporate as a coach. It's like the amount of times where I notice people are trying to change the rules for themselves, trying to make it fit in a way that makes things more convenient in the moment. And I get to look at them and say, well, has the goal changed? Has the outcome changed? Has the destination changed? No, not at all, Steve. Well, then what are we doing? Why are we trying to have this back and forth with ourselves to make something fit into something that, quite frankly, that's not what we're going after. That was never the agreement. It just seems as though you've either hit an adversity, you've hit a hard truth, and you've decided that, well, now the easy out would be, can we just change direction? Can we just go in another way? You know?
Yes. Oh yeah. We have, since we're a government contractor, when there's certain times around the budget, just like the shutdown that occurred last year, we'll get questions. Well, what can you tell us about a pending government shutdown? I said, I know as much as you do. I don't have the inside track. And then once in a while, you have one or two people that get mad at us. Well, you're withholding information. What am I withholding? Go look at the news. I look at the same news you do. So, but there's so much uncertainty out there that people want something certain to hang on to. And if they can't get the certainty, then sometimes once in a while, someone will start pointing the fingers that we're supposed to take responsibility. I don't have an answer for you because the government hasn't provided. That's all I can tell you. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, don't worry. I don't have the information to tell you, to confirm that everything's going to be okay. So, but people are frightened right now. There's things that they don't know. People lose jobs left and right. Changes are occurring in the government, which trickles down into corporate. So everyone is uncertain, and I don't like it either. I want to have answers, but I have to take it one day at a time and point the shit forward and steer around bad weather wherever I can. But I don't always have the information. I don't have all the facts if my customer doesn't have it.
Right. And it's it's important for folks to understand just how, and we got to touch on more of what the business is, and I don't want to necessarily recount what we talked about the first time you came on, but at the same time, it's important just to remind folks that the world that you operate in, and you alluded to it again in your initial response to my first question around GrowthReady, is that the world is ever changing. And in your world specifically, within the industries you're operating in, within government, there are few, if any, industries and environments right now that are more ever changing and more that come with more unknowns than the world you're operating in. And so I think this is a great opportunity for our listeners who I know for a fact deal with poorly at times unknowns. They don't, and it's a human thing, right? And so I'm curious, just in your world, you've alluded to it there, like you've identified maybe how some people, when they come to you, you're trying to find that middle ground. You're trying to be empathetic. Like, listen, I know what you know what I know. But in general, what are some of the effective ways that you've noticed that we can circumnavigate unknowns? What are you telling folks on your team, or what are you telling potential contracts and clients in terms of better embracing that of the unknown?
Well, with our contract employees, I also tell them my frustration. I hear you. I feel it. I don't like waiting. And I wish I did have an inside track, but I don't. But as soon as I would hear something, I would tell you, because I want you all to feel safe. I want you all to feel that you have a job tomorrow. So I usually let people know my own frustration of sitting in the unknown and that I wish I could control it. We all like to have 100% control, but we don't. Um, so I will share with people in a professional manner that I have the same concerns you do, and
Mm.
I get the concern.
Yeah.
Sometimes because people want to be heard,
Yeah.
and I'll acknowledge that, and but you still have one or two people that want to go on the attack, and just like, okay, I'm not going to. Myself, my staff, we talk over certain things. Like, we are not going to engage in a fight because someone wants to put their frustration or want to be able to point the finger to justify how they're feeling. We don't have to play that. We can just be there as a listening, continue to move forward.
Yeah. It's something I'm hearing as well, which I think is so important to acknowledge, is it's a safety issue. I love how you went to that word safety straight away. It's just unknown is the feeling of not being safe. And it's like, and we want that as humans. We want to feel safe. We don't frame it that way often. We use this term unknowns, but at the heart of what you're saying, I'm just hearing that. And I think it's such an important point, and something that we can all relate to, is that at the end of the day, is comfort found in the sense of safety. And I think it is. I really do.
It is. It is. And people are going to do what people do. We are all unpredictable. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
And what I find that, and my team will see that, when someone really wants to keep pushing it, inevitably we see that they didn't follow procedure. They kind of embellished on what they've done. They weren't truthful. So you pick and choose where we pick and choose how far we're going to engage, because what we don't want to then appear is that we have to be in the right. It's like, we hear you. Here's what we have. Here's what you've submitted. That's it. What can you do? It's
right.
But I am so grateful because our workforce is really magnificent. People have watched colleagues be walked out of government buildings. We have seen projects that have had to downsize or be canceled because of the changes. And I'd have to say that 95% of our contractual workforce has held such grace. And understanding that, you know what, I'm really grateful I haven't been walked out and I still have my job. And they're very patient. But you always have the couple that aren't. And again, that's their stuff.
Yeah.
They have to work through that.
Yeah. No, this is really, for me, I think it's very relatable, whatever the industry, whatever the world you're operating in. These are experiences that, whether you've been directly or indirectly, influenced by them, you've been influenced.
Yes.
It's had an impact on you at some point, especially in the last year or so. But one area I really have been excited to go to since you reached back out to me last year to come on the show is you introduced this new product, this new, and I don't want to go too far into it, but I do want to address why, because we aren't necessarily a show that pushes like, hey, we don't want you to come on and push your products and all this kind of thing. However, there's these really unique opportunities sometimes when it's presented to me the way you presented yours. There is a story of growth that is, the lesson is in that for our listeners. So I'd love for you just to give us a little bit of context around just the journey you've been on with this particular product, and then we'll have a conversation just around the lessons that can certainly come from that.
Okay. So part of our staffing is we have niche offerings that are accessibility related. So these are people who are reasonable accommodations analysts, readers, scribes, EEO specialists that support diversity, support the people who are blind, deaf, neurodivergent. So actually, one of my customers who was blind started to tell me about different apps, because I would hear things when we were on calls. It was just amazing what I would hear. And I'd be like, how'd you do that? Or I would see her on site and she navigates the hallways better than me who has my site. And she would say, hey, I want to tell you about some products I'm hearing about out there. Would you be interested in seeing, just getting your feedback on it? So when I would dive in, I thought, wow, this would be great. What does everyone want to hear now? Mobile apps. Everybody's into it. So we looked at designing it and started to put together a framework for it. But I'm not an engineer or a developer, and felt that this particular company, Good Maps, had it down pat. So it's really indoor GPS, a mobile app. And so we were in conversations for over a year to be able to put together an agreement to work together. And so we are a reseller for this product that you can download from either the iPhone, Apple Store, or the Google Store. And it's being used in a lot of airports and museums. So we're working to get it into the government space. So what it does is you open up the app. It's so cool. And it's even for any of us that go to an airport, like, oh my God, where's my gate? Or here, where's this? Where's that? You look up, what comes up is the maps. You find your map if where you are is using this. And basically you say, or you write in whichever, where you want to go. And it gives you a map to be able to get there, whether it's with verbal cues or the site to be able to see it. It is absolutely fascinating. Most people know when you go into a building, any building, you see the Braille for people to be able to know what office they're going to. But if you weren't raised learning Braille, and not every family raises people to learn Braille,
Sure.
It's useless. And if you can't see it, how do you know where the Braille is? So this just basically uses laser technology within an office, within a building, so people can so it can be properly mapped for someone to translate it to this mobile app. And it's constantly updating. So if the customer changes the footprint in the building, the app gets changed too, the map gets changed. So it's fascinating.
It really is. And the part that I really wanted to just go into now with you more is we talked about this when you initially came on, about just, and you actually alluded to it earlier, your business has been around for 36 years. And most of the last 10 years is where you've really seen the fruits of that work, for instance. And when you came on previously, you just had a couple of awards. And unsurprisingly, since I last spoke to you, those awards have just kind of kept coming. And now here you are with a new opportunity, a new venture that's come your way. And it just got me thinking. I was like, it's fascinating to me that we live in this time where everybody wants to get rich quick, and everybody wants the silver bullet. Like, hey, this is how you do it. And everyone's preaching, hey, give me 6 weeks and I'll give you 6 figures and all this, nonsense that I just can't get. We obviously don't represent that on the show, let's put it that way. But for me, you're a testament of time. You're a testament of patience. You're a testament of growth and a willingness to trust the many ups and downs and lefts and rights and twists and turns and lessons along the way, to where now an opportunity has come your way that is outside of your business, and yet you found a way to sort of say, well, no, like, yeah, it's way outside of my skill set. You said it yourself. I'm not a tech. I'm not a tech person. I'm not an engineer or anything like that. But you see value in it, and you see an opportunity for growth. And so my immediate question for you, Betsy, is just like, why now, and why the investment and the excitement? Because again, you have this incredibly reputable and established organization that you've taken 36 years to build, and now you say, I want something else. I want something new. I think there's some really interest. I'm just fascinated to sort of understand why that might be.
The product is a complement to the accessibility staffing. So if part of the group that we're representing are providing services for people who are blind, deaf, and neurodivergent, this is a really good complement. So we're providing the services within the framework of a office building. So how about we provide not a complementary, but a complementing service that has the people that we're serving be able to navigate the office building where they work more independently or more confidently and safely. So it made sense. And it's important to me, having started to work with the disabled community since about 2011. I just started to attend different conferences, meet brilliant people who are blind and deaf, who are doing and have done amazing cutting edge work and continue to make a difference. And I want to be part of that. I think people in the community are so courageous, and we have a lot to learn. And over the past year, there have been a lot of budget cuts for the disabled community, not many communities, but certainly the disabled community. And that's not okay with me. It really isn't. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I have my eyesight, I have my hearing, I'm fully mobile. That's not the case for everyone. And just like as a woman and as a member of the LGBT community, I have been surrounded by so many allies. It's my turn to give back to a community that is in need and that needs to be protected. So I'm an ally for the disabled community. And in my heart, that feels right for me, because I refuse to allow some of the things that are going on and that people don't get to have or no longer can. So this is my way of being part of the conversation and the effort to make sure that there's protections and safety and services for people in that community.
It's wonderful, and the representing of the unrepresented, of the underrepresented. It's powerful, and to hear you also label this next chapter, it could easily be seen. I almost want to correct myself. It's not necessarily a next chapter or an additional business, etc. It's a how do I complement? How do I complement what I've already built? How do I complement and build upon what's already been grown? And that is a really fascinating way to look at all this, because I think I'm an ambitious individual. I'm excited about the growth of my own business. I get tempted from time to time, like, how could we grow this? What else could I be doing? And I think anyone that listens to this show is cut from a similar cloth. And what I'm hearing from you is that it just made sense. It made sense. And it was because of the complementary part of this. You then get to say, okay, well, if it makes sense and it complements, then how much actually has to change? How much of what I do has to change? And how much of this is going to simply add to growth without necessarily derailing growth at the same time?
Yeah. It's not unusual that when people are faced with adversity, that they throw something out and start over. I don't want to do it that way. You know, I've been in business for a long time. So my feeling is, how do I look at my reserves and build from that? It's the same thing. You know, I've been a runner for a number of years, not right now, but I have been. And what is the most important time? It's that last mile. When you don't have any more, or, you know, the last quarter when the press is really on of whatever sport you're in. So I'm looking at, and I started this process before we had a change in the government, because I just saw that, how can I build on what I already have? Because I need credibility to sell it. You know, if I've been doing staffing and as a federal contractor for a number of years, and then I decide to get into something that I've never done, that's a harder sales pitch than, here's what we do, and this is a compliment. And I already have outstanding references in our accessibility work. So So my current customers will trust me more if I'm coming to them and saying, I've got this. And there's always a risk when you do something that's cutting edge technology, but you've seen me in your space for over 10 years. You know what my company's done. You know how I run the business. So they're more apt to say, let's go to the table and talk about this because we already have trust established. So it's, it's not like, oh, there's just going to be a flood of business that comes in. That's not how it works, but the trust has already been established.
And that's what you mean by reserves. That's what you're referencing, are the reserves. And I think for me, like I love that concept. Like to go to it as I didn't know exactly where you were going at first when you said reserves, and I just absolutely adore the way you've explained that because it's so true. And I even think about my naivety when I first started my business. And you want every introduction, you want every connection, and so often the people that you're asking at that, they're actually doing you a service by not giving you the introduction because they can tell you're not ready.
That's right.
You're not ready for this introduction. Maybe you can go to a networking event. It's a little bit safer. You're not directly being introduced to someone, but then you ask someone, hey, can you put me in this high rise with this big time CEO and let me pitch what it is I'm doing now? And they tell you no, it doesn't necessarily mean they devalue you. They're just telling you that either you're not ready or, to your point, you've not built that level of trust. You've not gotten
It's no
that.
for now.
Yeah.
It's just no for now. And I am grateful that I have the past performance to be able to build on this, to gain the trust. When you spoke about networking events, I don't like them. I'm very introverted, and many people don't believe that, but I am very introverted. I gain my, I recharge by going in. So when I do go to networking events, I'm very intentional. I really they always tell you to newbies out there, know who you're talking to. But if if somebody goes around the room gripping and grinning, you can usually tell when they're not sincere. I do my research. I'm clear who's going to be there, why I want to talk to them. So if there's 1,000 people going to be attending, I may only have a top 10 on my list, but those conversations are so intentional, so meaningful, and usually lead me to something else. I don't always get the business, but I'll get a referral for something else. So to me, I won because I have another lead. So everything is about intentionality and awareness and flexibility. Well, I thought that person was going to be in the room. They're not. So rather than feel defeated, okay, well, who can I add to the list? So I'll have my top 10, and then I have a second top 10 and a third top 10. So I always have my list going.
Yeah. No, it's such. And again, as someone who's an avid networker, we're obviously different in that regard, and I have a comfortability in those rooms. I think there's a part of me that actually only comes out in those rooms, if you will. I almost rise to those sort of moments. But at the same time, what I'm hearing is such a, let's get to the core of how you can optimize certain situations. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier, what is the end that you have in mind? And this example with networking is so fitting with what we were talking about earlier. And again, it's another wonderfully relatable concept for others who are listening. At the end of the day, I've done this before. When you go to a networking event, you say, I'm going to go talk, I'm going to do this. I've even got people in mind. And to your point, that first one isn't there or whatever it is, or they're too hard to get to. Suddenly you get defeated and suddenly the behavior changes. And it's in those moments where you go, no, but why am I here? Why am I here? Why did I come here? What was a win going to look like by coming here? It wasn't that one person. I told myself I had 10 and a backup 10 and another 10. So am I going to stick to what the goal was in mind? Or am I going to allow my behavior to be faltered now just because the first piece of adversity came in the first 5 minutes?
That's right. And I will go into big events and I'll go to the farthest point of the room. And I challenge myself. I'm going to start in that corner. I cannot leave until I talk to X many people. And when I leave, I'm going to go to Starbucks and I'm going to get myself a chai latte. That's my reward. Okay.
We had the
So
same drink. I love that.
yeah, I have to. I have to challenge myself that again, as an athlete, what do? We keep raising the bar.
That's right.
And I have definitely had people say, I can't believe you are an introvert because I watch how you talk to people. It's because the hardest part is getting to the first word, finding the right person, because I'm not going to be the one that works the whole room. I want to have meaningful conversation because to me, that's what business is all about. I don't really want to talk BS. I'm there. I've paid a lot of money to attend. I'm there to get business. And yes, to make friends, but I'm really there to get business.
Yeah. No, it's such good stuff. And for me, just listening to you, I'm reminded of so many chapters in my own career and business, etc. But I'm thinking about when I do hear from listeners and why I hear from listeners. I think there's certain examples here that you provided at the end that I know I'm going to hear from folks who are just empowered to look at some of these opportunities differently. And that's always my hope with these conversations is can we get a different perspective on something like networking? But even going back to how you initially answered the question of just whether it be awareness and flexibility, like I encourage our listeners to think, how am I practicing awareness? How am I practicing flexibility? You use that word practice within this conversation so intentionally. And I really want people to understand that whether it be awareness, flexibility, whether it be the truth, how can we practice these things? How can we just simply become a student who understands that the more I practice these things, maybe one day, dare I say it, I may master these things.
That's right.
And that for me is a growth journey that, to now go to the final part of what we talked about here, it's how we build those reserves. It's how, because we have to invest in people along the way. We have to. There's no other way of doing it. And in those reserves, we then get to go to those folks and make those asks or have them consider us for something that otherwise they probably would dismiss us for.
Right.
But to be able to go back on sort of those insights too. And so I mean, this is just phenomenal stuff, Betsy. And I also want to just ask you in closing here, when I think about what you've achieved over the course of the business, this new venture now that you're adding as a complement to the business, you don't sound like you're slowing down. Let's put it that way. So what does growth in your mind look like for you moving forwards right now? What does the future of growth look like for you, and what do you want it to look like?
Sharing a lot of my wisdom with my team, because the women that work for me are extraordinary. They have huge hearts. They're tough. They, in a good way, you cannot schmooze them and get away with things. They know. And I really love at this stage of my life to do more of being the wind beneath people's wings as people work for me, because that's how I got better, is people had me hang out there where I was freaked out to learn and to make mistakes. So Steve, I sometimes can't believe how time has passed. I'm 64. I'm an elder, I guess, in the various communities that I'm a part of, though I still feel like a kid.
Yeah.
But I have a responsibility as an elder to pass the torch and to teach. And that's really what I want my role and my trajectory to be, about teaching. I have one more book that I'm finishing up. It's a children's book, so it would be my second children's book. Yeah, I've decided I started another leadership book. I'm like, I think I want to be with kids now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. To what age group?
Probably like 8 to 10, maybe 6 to 10. So, there's just something magical. And I always weave in leadership in some way into the books that I've written for kids, because I look at who taught me, and I want kids to be able to learn and grasp and get strong, because the world is a tough place right now, and I want them to be equipped.
Yeah. I love that. I've got a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old. My 6-year-old is a girl, and she's going to lead. My gosh, is that girl going to lead? I mean, I can't wait to see what she owns one day, who she leads one day. And so whether it be the information on the books, the information on the new app, obviously the information with all the work you do there with AdNet and anything else, we're going to get all that information up with the show notes for this episode. But Betsy, it was hard to beat the sheer enjoyment and appreciation I took from the first time we spoke, and we may have found a way to do it anyway. So I really do appreciate the time, the generosity, the insights, and just continued success with everything that you're doing.
Thank you, and I appreciate you, and thank God for the show that you have. We need you, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.